Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're talking about Cyclone Armor and a few more of the druid skills. No campaign update or changelog today. I have moved those to their own videos. You can check them out every other week on the normally off weeks that I had done. But today I think I need to start with some design philosophy. So what I had done is I was looking at Cyclone Armor and figured that it was a bit too strong as a main class feature. It's for 1 minute per short rest, you can just gain resistance to fire, cold, and lightning. The druid ability in Diablo gives you temporary hit points that absorbs fire, cold, and lightning damage, much like how the Necromancer's bone armor absorbs physical damage. But it can't give you temporary hit points because that interferes with your wear form. So I just moved it to the Wind Druid's 6th level subclass feature. The reason being is because I had Twister in that slot. So it was Arctic Blast, Twister, Tornado, and then Hurricane. And Twister and Tornado are very similar abilities. They have very different mechanics, but they're very thematically similar. So I moved Cyclone Armor out, taking the place of Twister. Twister will very likely be moved or combined in with Tornado. Like you have a modular ability where it's like, oh, I can make a line of Tornado, or I can make a cone with Twister. Just, I don't know. It's something that I'll have to do later. But that left a gap in the 5th level. So what do I fill it with? And that got me thinking about whether or not the druid should be moved from a half caster to a full caster, because I already have a 3rd level blank, 5th level could be blank, and if I moved the Vine into its own subclass, then that would be I don't know what they would call it, the Vine Master or something. I don't know, pick something, but it would open the way to being a full spellcaster, or a full spellcaster. And that got me thinking about, well, if I'm just going to do that, why not make this entire class just a series of subclasses? I mean, you look at the druid skills on Diablo, and here's the fire skills, and they are their own subclass. And then here's the wind skills. They're now their own subclass. The shifter could be split into 2. So you have the werewolf and the werebear, and they are their own subclass. And then you have the spiritualist who gets the spirits, and that's their own subclass. And then the main summoning creatures, and that's their own subclass. And then if you move the vines out, then it's their own subclass. So why not just make this a subclass of the D&D druids? And that was kind of my thoughts on that. And then I was looking at the actual subclass, or the actual class features for the D&D druid. And I'm like, first off, you have druidic, which is, I guess it could have worked. Wild shape, well, that's just lycanthropy. Or that's just the were form, isn't it? So if you get the werewolf and werebear shifter subclasses, then that just modifies how they interact with wild shape. I mean, the Circle of the Wildfire Druid and the Circle of the Stars Druid both interact with wild shape, so why not just make it that? And then you have the wild shape improvement, and then down at the bottom you have Timeless Body, Beast Spells, and Arch Druid. And I just thought, that's not really what I want to do. So for now, I'm just leaving it as a half caster. And that means that I had to give them extra attack. I kind of wanted them to be more like the Artificer, where they don't get extra attack, but this is kind of intended to be the martial version of a half-caster rather than the spellcastery version that the Artificer is. But this is just what I'm interacting with right now, so we'll see how things shake out. But then I ran into a problem, because extra attack interacts with certain systems in the shifter subclass, specifically with Feral Rage, which gave extra attack, because that's what Feral Rage does. It gives you additional attacks. Well, specifically, it gives you a faster attack speed. Oh, it doesn't give you faster attack speed. Never mind. It steals life from you, but it's just kind of the next step up to get to Fury, which does give you extra attacks. So my bad on that one. Oh, that's what it was. It gave you two different kinds of attacks. It gave you an additional attack, because it kind of was the level where you get extra attack, but also it gave you the bonus action attack that could heal you. That means that Feral Rage had to change, because suddenly that extra attack is pointless. And then, with that disappearing, Maul kind of needed to be tweaked, because Maul, the Werebear 6th level feature, it gave you benefit for successive hits. And that means, well, it's just the design philosophy of this. Feral Rage gave you additional damage through extra attacks. Maul gave you additional damage through successive hits. That's why it was a D12, because it was a big hit. But things changed, so I had to move some things around. So Feral Rage no longer gives an additional attack to the attack action, and the bonus action attack is more like the Form of the Beast's Mandible attack, in that you regain hit points based off of your if you're under your hit point maximum, and it's based off of your proficiency bonus, rather than the damage you dealt. Because this was a nerf, I mean, you can still get a bonus action attack, which is nice, but because this got nerfed, I removed the restriction. It was originally twice per short rest, or twice per long rest, and now I've moved it to that's just part of the baseline. But Maul also needed to fall into line. It's just, I like the symmetry of having just passive abilities. And also Maul kind of needed to be a little bit better. So now you can essentially shove as a bonus action. So the idea is that Maul originally has a stun so that you can continue hitting this thing, but instead of that successive strikes, it's now, I'm going to knock you down and maul you, so that you get advantage on those attacks. So it's kind of, but not really the same. It's not really the same at all, but it also kind of feels better. It's like a bear is mauling you, which is fun. Yeah. But that also means that Fire Claws had to be tweaked. Fire Claws, it originally did wisdom damage equal to, it originally did fire damage equal to your wisdom modifier, and then bumped up to twice your wisdom modifier at a later level. But now that you have extra attack, going, a +5 damage on every hit to +10 damage on every hit twice a turn was way too strong. So that had to be nerfed. So as of right now, it is half your wisdom modifier rounded up, so that you get essentially your wisdom modifier whenever you deal damage, or whenever you hit with 2 attacks on a turn. Something else that had to change was rabies. So when you have additional chances to hit, suddenly, poisoning for 1 minute is incredibly good, because it helps ensure that poisoning sticks. Feral Rage originally just gave you a bonus action attack twice per long rest, or short rest. Long rest, I can't remember. And that meant that twice per rest, whichever one that is, you could get 3 attacks, which means that your rabies was almost guaranteed to stick. And it also burned through legendary resistances. I mean, it could be used to burn through legendary resistances. So what I did is I nerfed the ability so that if a creature succeeds the saving throw, it's immune to rabies for 1 minute. This way, you'd only poison one creature, you'd only poison a creature once per combat. So it's nerfed, but it's still pretty darn good. So lastly, let's just talk the Wind Druid. So like I said, Cyclone Armor has been moved to their 6th level feature instead of the Twister. So what would Tornado look like? Well, this isn't a let's create. This is kind of a let's fix. So I'm not going to be making the Tornado right now, but potentially let's talk about what this could be. I also kind of need to pad run time because this is way shorter than I normally do it. I mean, that's kind of the point, but anyway. So the way that Twister works, it sends out 3 small pieces of wind that move out kind of in a cone, and they stun. It's kind of a crowd control sort of thing. You think of it like the sorceress's charged bolts, but bludgeoning damage or physical damage in this case, rather than lightning damage. And also it stuns. It is notorious for just missing completely everybody that you're quote-unquote aiming at. But the idea is that it is a cone that produces a little bit of damage and stuns. Tornado is a line, or supposedly a line. It's a line if it was, drunk. But it deals just more damage. It's Twister, but damage and no stun. This one is your main damage dealer. Twister is your crowd control. Now, they're both twisty winds that move away from you. So what could this potentially be? I had considered possibly saying that you gain the ability to create winds in either an area, a 30-foot cone, say, or a 60-foot line, maybe 10 feet wide or so, and it does one of the 2 things. The other possible thing that I could do is create a spiritual weapon kind of thing, where the tornado would be like a 10 by 10 square that I could move around the battlefield, and Twister is 3, maybe 2, maybe 3 smaller ones that move around the battlefield, and you can command them as an action or a bonus action. The problem with that is that your bonus action is taken up by your vine. Your action is taken up by your attack. So what you would want to use, it's running into the action economy. And it's running into the problems of I don't have the ability to do everything that I want to do. But if I move the vine from a bonus action to a verbal command, that is a way stronger ability, because then the shifter druid can turn into the werewolf, get an attack off with their vine, then get 2 attacks off with their action, and an attack off with their bonus action. This is one of the reasons why I'm not particularly keen on using, and they're a spellcaster as well. So the druid is struggling very heavily with action economy, what you want to use your action and bonus action on. And I just don't know. I just don't know. So, if you have any ideas of what to do and how to put the druid's action economy to rest, the choke points to rest. I mean, having opportunities, having options is good, but when all of those options are good, and when all of those options take up the same slot, that just feels bad. The druid is already good. I just don't know how to make it more refined. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for me. You can find me at XenozFan2, that is XenozFan2 on Twitter and Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can find the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Twitter and Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.